Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat mental health with amazing humans. For this episode, I'm so happy to introduce Alex Lee to the conversation. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, nice to meet you again.
Nice to meet you and nice to see you again.
Yeah.
So Alex and I, as a quick introduction, Alex and I know each other through our mutual love for running. I tend to talk to quite a few runners in these episodes, these podcasts, which is fantastic because it's a passion of mine and love of mine. I know Alex shares that passion too, but also we have some mutual sort of relationships when it comes to the conversation of mental health, some things that we might have been through. I'm not going to steal any of Alex's thunder for his story, but just to say, Alex is an amazing human who has been through things himself, is going to talk about those experiences too. And Alex, thank you for joining me for this episode.
No worries. Thank you for having me on.
So, introduction from you. Tell people all about you.
Okay. So, who am I? I'm Alex. As Matt's just said, I am 37 years old. I think I can't remember these days. Married to Jen, who's a secondary school teacher here in Basingstoke, and I have 4 children, ranging in ages from 18 down to 5. 3 girls and a boy. So it's just me and the son fighting for any kind of opportunities in life when we're at home. And I am in software development, although I'm not a developer, I'm a Scrum Master, but I won't go too much into what a Scrum Master is because it can take up most of the conversation anyway. As you said, into running, maybe a bit too much at times. So I first started running in 2015 after leaving the forces. Background, I joined the forces as a young lad at 17 and a half years old. And when I left in 2014, I kind of spent the year celebrating and putting on a considerable amount of weight. So 2015 New Year's Eve, we just happened to be with Laura and Liam, in fact, in my kitchen, and said that kind of needed to do a bit of exercise, and Liam and I decided to join up or sign up for the Reading half marathon to concentrate on something. And from then on, kind of got a passion for running, and that really did overtake. Maybe in part towards, kind of dealing with all the mental health things that I've been through, accelerated into running ultra marathons. So anything up to 100 miles. I've run the Thames Path 100 twice. And this year I'm doing the Grand Slam of 100s, which is so it's a Thames Path 100, the South Downs Way 100, the North Downs Way 100, and the Autumn 100 in over the course of the year. So a lot of time spent with me and myself out on the trails running. That's a quick intro, I guess.
Wow, brilliant. And for anybody listening, Liam and Laura are friends of ours that we both know, just in case anybody's wondering, who are these Liam and Laura?
Yes.
So they're friends that we both know through a running community. I always remember just a quick story, I always remember going for a run with you, Alex, when I was training for the London Marathon, and I think you joined us for like an 18-mile run. And I remember vividly you just saying, yeah, it's quite a short run today for me. And it was, I just couldn't believe the sort of the thought that said that was a short run. 18 miles is quite a long run, and definitely a long run for me at the moment.
I know, and sometimes I do. I come home from those sorts of runs with people and think, maybe I said something wrong. Like, ultimately, people are at their own individual stages in their running careers, and the fact that people are out running is, for me, better than not running, sat at home doing nothing and doing no phys at all. But yeah, in the grand scheme of things, when you're training for an ultra marathon, like if I take this weekend as an example coming, I've got 6 hours of running to do in one day. So I'll be looking at, upwards of 30 miles as a training run. And it does sound stupid, but we're all at individual levels, like I said, and my 6 hours is no different to somebody running 18 miles, 20 miles, a marathon. We all go through the same emotions, we all go through the same aches and pains, but mine just appear at different times these days.
Gosh, I get an
Yeah.
ache and pain thinking about that sort of distance. But anyway, let's go to the conversation of mental health, because you're
Yes.
telling us all about how, you know, that's about managing mental well-being. And that,
Yeah.
we'll come back to that and circle back to that towards the end of this. But I want to hear a bit about your story, Alex, because
Okay.
you know, tell us your journey with mental health. That's the big question.
Whoa.
Tell us where.
So I was trying to. I was listening to a couple of your podcasts before this, so that I could get an idea of what to say and where do I need to start my journey. And I can remember back to a time when I was younger. You know, must have been a young lad, growing up with my mum and dad and my brother. And I can remember we were going on holiday, and I had to be, I say drugged, given some anxiety medication to go into the airport because I was so scared of fires. It was, I think I'd watched a film, Airplane, or, you know, something along those lines, where people were, you know, basically, you know, airplane crashes, and I got scared to go on an airplane, and it got so to the point where I was too scared to go into the airport. So I think I recall my mum and dad giving me, is it Phenergan or Finnegan, to this is like an anxiety drug to calm me down and chill me out so that we could go on holiday. So that's, I guess, my earliest memory of any kind of dealings with mental health issues. But I guess my main story started, I joined, as I said, joined the army at 17 and a half, young lad. And so that was 2001. And in 2004, I think it was, or three, I can't, so long ago now, I was posted to Iraq with my battalion. I was an infantry soldier, so on the front line. And we were posted to a place called Al Amara in Iraq, which was kind of like the hotbed of all the activity in the British-held sector for the time in Iraq. And in particular, I was in a place called Simic House. And if people want to kind of research it, there are things on YouTube and on Google about Simic House. It's where one of the recipients, Johnson Baharia, he got a VC for his actions at Simic House during the time that we were there. He was part of my regiment. But so as part of being out there, you had three kind of jobs to do that you rotated through as a team. One was patrols, so you'd go out, you'd patrol the city. One was known as the Quick Reaction Force, so any emergencies, any incidents that happened, you responded to them quickly. You were ready to go straight away. And the other one was guard duty, so you'd guard the camp itself, and within that guard duty, you'd have different sangers that you rotated through. And a sanger is a fortified emplacement that protects an individual whilst they're on duty. And I was on guard duty for this particular incident. I'd got through pretty much the whole of my shift on guard duty, and I was coming up. You did a front gate, roof sentry position, and then a back gate. And I was, you know, coming up to, it's my last hour, kind of feeling all jovial about the fact that, you know, I'd be off for a couple of hours, and went up to the back gate, and just like any normal guard duty. That night, though, we came under mortar attack from the insurgents. And mortars are kind of small explosive devices, and they're fired out of a barrel from, depending on the size, anywhere up to a distance of about 5K away. We kind of knew whereabouts, or roughly we thought where they were coming from, in a particular sort of area of Al Amara. But we came under attack. I called it in on the radar, and that we were coming under a mortar attack, so that it gave people warning to take cover. And then the course of action is that you're supposed to sort of count the number of pops that go off to the number of bangs that happen the other end, so that you know that if there's 5 pops and 5 bangs, all of the rounds have exploded, right? Yeah. They tend to hit the river kind of outside of the camp itself. And there was there was a number of pops, but the pops didn't relate to the number of bangs. So there was a blind, what was called a blind. It didn't go off.
Right.
So I had to say, like, I didn't know where it was. It could have been in the camp. It could have been outside the wire. So they launched the quick reaction force to come and have a look. And at that time, they're sort of flashing around trying to find this blind. There was some more rounds that went off. And for some reason, unbeknownst to me, I decided that I needed to get down on a knee within the Sangha. And it's not, you're not supposed to do this sort of thing. There was another guy in the Sangha as well at the same time, who was he was a Filipino guy that was protecting the American contractors out there. And I was like, come on, get down on a knee, and one of those pops caused a bang on the corner of the Sangha that I was in. And it blew me out the back of the Sangha, and pretty much sort of blew up the corner of the wall where the Sangha was. Right. It kind of that hit me. I was very close to the end of my life there.
Wow.
I was pulled into cover by the QRF. They saw it all happen, and dusted myself off and realised that I was okay. And the other guy as well just happened to be okay. Now, as a kind of aside to the story, when I first went up to the Sangha that night, I went up the steps, and where the position was, if you take it as a rectangle, the steps at the back on one of the corners, and you sort of went up. My position was directly in front of the steps, and the other guy, the Filipino, was on the left. And in front of us, we had a good view of the city. Yeah. I had a machine gun, he had a machine gun, and on the wall in front of us, there was a white bird that he had put there because it couldn't fly. And I was like, what's this? And he's like, oh, it's a bird, it can't fly, I'm looking after it. I was like, you can't have that here. If I need to use this machine gun, I can't, it's going to get in the way. So he grabbed it, put it at the back of the Sangha. And the next morning, after kind of things had settled down, I wanted to go back and have a look at what had happened and see the Sangha. And there's a chunk of the wall missing, and the Filipino, his machine gun was just mangled to bits, and there's a steel pole that ran through the middle that had all stone pepper pots in it, where it had exploded. Yeah. But the Filipino was there holding this white bird, and it was still alive. And I'm not a religious person, really. Even since that day and before that day, I've never been religious, but I always thought then, like, something was watching over me that day. What it was, I don't know. Yeah. But we both walked away from that incident unscathed in terms of physical injuries. Yeah. Unfortunately for me, though, that was kind of the turning point where I then kind of every attack launched me into what was later diagnosed as PTSD. I actually got medically evacuated from Iraq because I couldn't cope with any of the explosions that were taking part, that were happening around because of what was going on at the time. And I was just very sort of incapable of looking after myself. So they medevac me back to the UK, where I had I spoke to a mental health nurse through the army in the camp, and they diagnosed me with PTSD from the event. So that's really sort of my one journey, the first part of it. I don't know how much you want me to continue. I think I learned a lot from meeting up with a mental health nurse and talking about my problems. Yeah. And that was a very clear starting point, that I needed to talk about everything that happened, why I was so scared, why I was worried, and highlighting really that it was the fear of death was what was causing the biggest stresses to me. I was 21 years old, and I was scared of dying and leaving behind. At the time, I had a wife and a young daughter, and I didn't want to die. That was, I don't think anyone does, but I guess being so close to it at the time, it was,
Wow, what an incredible story, Alex, and the reality of what you've been through and what that creates, and what I think is going to be really important for anybody listening is to recognize, trauma, and a traumatic event like the one that you went through does create this challenge, this mental impact. And what was really interesting in that was the thought that said, or not the thought, but the reality that said physically you were unscathed.
Yeah.
Mentally you had scars that needed to be supported in a different way, which is great that I've heard, for you to say you came back and you've had the support, but that was a while ago, right?
Yes.
So this is something that you've lived with for a long time now,
yeah.
right?
And it still affects me to this day. I still think about it, and I still get a little bit emotional about it, and I guess sometimes struggle to tell my story because it has been so long ago. And it, whether people really are interested with that sort of thing, and when you start raising these sorts of conversations with people, especially with people that don't know you, they want to dig deeper. They want to ask more questions, and I may have packed that away for what, I've dealt with it in a sense, but unpacking it again means that I have to then go process it again and go through that conversation about, that things are okay now, and that I can, these are the ways of managing things. And I'll probably go out for a long run later and have a good old cry about it again.
Right.
But, it's fireworks nights are always, if I know that fireworks night is going on, but if anything either side of that, I get a little bit jumpy about, it not as bad as what I used to be. When I first came back, I was underneath the coffee table thinking that would help me. But now I'm very jumpy around the days, but it's nowhere near as much as what it used to be. So I process it every now and then.
Yeah, that's good. And and you're right, you mentioned the words talking about it as well does help, because then it helps you to accept it and to recognize it, and others can understand. Because I just want to go back once again to that point of no physical injury. No physical injury. That's the thing that worries us, isn't it? Is people, you can just think, oh well, you can dust yourself off and go back and do it again, but
exactly,
the impact mentally is always to be considered.
Yeah, and I think we've come a long way since that time as well. Nearly 20 years ago, in terms of mental health as a society. I always thought that I was the odd one out for being Medivac. There's only a couple of us that were Medivac for kind of the mental health reasons, and at the time, I felt like I was the odd one out. I felt like I had a problem, that I wasn't strong enough to deal with it. That I should have been, I should have manned up. Essentially, that's what it felt like. And now actually I see friends and old colleagues that are now suffering like years on from it. Where they bottled it up and they did put it in a can and left it, and now they're just unable to deal with the emotions and the anxiety, the stresses from those times. They're having nightmares there. So I think I was fortunate in a case, in a sense, that I had it then and not now.
And another message that's really clear there, isn't it, which is the sooner we can get the support or get the conversation open, the better the chances of a good recovery and you're right, so many people have bottled up so much stuff. And I know people who say, I've put it away in a box, I don't want to deal with it. And sometimes that box will open and you start to see those challenges that people are experiencing. But thank you for sharing that as well, Alex. And
that's right.
It's not easy, and it's a long, it's a long process that you've been through with that. The rest of the journey after leaving then the military, or from there, what else has been going on that you want to talk about?
Okay, so where do I start? So let's go with, so in essentially my second born daughter, she was born with disabilities. So she's got some quite profound learning disabilities. And I think struggling to sort of process those, through the years, the fact that she'll never be the same as any other child in her age, in a sense. She'll never mutter the words, I love you, or even I hate you, Dad, in any known form, in a clear form anyway. That was obviously quite hard to deal with, and I think that impacted on a relationship with my ex-wife, in a way. Then in 2010, my son, he was born 10 weeks premature. So we kind of went through the process of him coming very early, him being whisked away to a neonatal SCBU, and being left on a maternity ward with other mothers and fathers with their kids, crying around them, and it does have a big impact on your mental health as a family, to see other families with their kids and yours isn't there with you. Yours is fighting for his life in a neonatal unit. I remember getting a phone call about 3-4 in the morning, and from the hospital saying, can you come in and say your goodbyes, because he's blown a lung.
Oh wow.
And obviously I was a bit like, what the crap is going on? This is like not what it was supposed to be like, right? This is not how we're supposed to be like bringing our son into the world. But luckily he pulled through. He's 11 years old now, and you wouldn't have known that he was 10 weeks premature. He's just as much of a tearaway 11-year-old as any other 11-year-old boy of his age, in his group. But from that point on, the fact that he was premature and he was whisked away, my ex-wife then suffered postnatal depression, and it was severe postnatal depression. Right. She rejected him basically for the first few months of his life, and I was in the forces at the time, and we're still at the time, and we were moved from pillar to post because of my disabled daughter. We were living down in Portsmouth at the time, and I spent a lot of time being that the father, the housemaker, trying to work as well, and support an ex-wife, at the time, who was having really bad mental health problems with postnatal depression. It got so bad that she spent some time in a mother and baby unit with him. So he was then essentially taken away from me for a period of time while she recovered in a mother and baby unit in Winchester. So that was I guess dealt with in a way. We overcame that situation. But it was very clear, and I think from that point forward, that my ex-wife, she wasn't 100% well. In 2012, after she was going through some treatment for what was later diagnosed as she's got multiple personality disorder, or she's bipolar, and she's got multiple personalities essentially. She decided that our relationship wasn't worth carrying on with, so we ended up splitting up and got a divorce, and then she moved back from, we were living near Andover at the time, moved back to Basingstoke, where she was from, to just outside Basingstoke, actually, in Tadley. And then I was still kind of a single soldier in the forces, and traveling around, being posted to different places, whilst also trying to have a long distance relationship with my kids. Which is hard at times, especially when you're then deployed to Afghanistan, in 2013, and I don't see them for essentially 6 months. But at the time I met my now wife, and we've, which is kind of, I think, really essentially how we met, Matt, really, I think, because she's best friends with Laura, who and then got into running. So she's helped me kind of contextualize a lot of that. And she's given me a completely different attitude in life, that whatever will be, and to kind of accept every day as it comes. Don't fret over the individual situations that happen as such, or try not to, right? They happen for a reason, and something positive will come of it. I can remember when I left the army, I actually had an opportunity to go and work in a completely different field, but the army wouldn't let me leave. And my wife she was like, "It's okay, you know, don't worry about it, because something good will happen of that." And, you know, lo and behold, I managed to fall into another completely different field, which I now, you know, has led me to where I am now, and absolutely love it. But yeah, and then as part of that journey, in 2017, I mean, we've got sort of, it's all meshes in as one. My eldest daughter tried to commit suicide a number of times.
Right.
She, I think she suffered as she grew up the fact that we were moving around all the time as a child, and her education was affected, and I think she struggled a lot at school and struggled a lot with bullying and all manner of different things. And her mum's diagnosis of having kind of multiple personalities and bipolar, that sort of thing, I think affected her, and she wanted a way out. She was hurting inside. She didn't want to hurt us, or we spoke before about this. So she didn't want to hurt us anymore. So felt that the easiest way to stop hurting us was to take her own life. And you know, this was at home. She tried to overdose on taking tablets, but at school as well. You know, even going into the bathroom at school and trying to take her own life with a ligature, you know, and putting it around her neck, and getting a phone call as a dad to say that your daughter's in A&E because she tried to take her own life was, I guess, the biggest shock of my life. You know, bigger than being blown up out of a Sanger. You know, your own daughter's felt that it's not worth carrying on, right? And I still get emotional. I think, you know, I'm starting to feel like I could well up now about it. But she spent, after we kind of said at the time, you know, she was signposted to CAMS, who at the time, and I still think, you know, now they struggle with the level of, or the number of people, the number of teenagers suffering with mental health, and their wait time to just to speak to somebody was horrendous. And I can't even remember who gave us this piece of advice, and it's a terrible piece of advice. It's not even advice, but we were told, essentially, this was me and my daughter's grandmother at the time, to say to them, we can't safely look after her in our own home, and they will have to deal with it. They will have to deal with the problem there and then. So we said that, you know, and we didn't. Looking back, we didn't feel safe, right? We couldn't leave her alone for 5 minutes without her looking to self-harm, using anything that she could get hold of. And when you see people self-harm and you try to stop people from self-harming, you find that they find ingenious ways to self-harm. You know, and you know, essentially we said this, and she was then sectioned in a high dependency mental health unit in the East Sussex Kent border, so 2.5 hours away, essentially by car, because there wasn't anything closer. And I was very lucky at the time with my work. You know, they understood very well about mental health and how mental health can affect their employees and the staff and that. So they essentially gave me the opportunity to dial back how I worked. To, you know, my boss was at the time, he was very clear, you know, Alex, you give over 100% when you're here. So now's time to just take what you need to deal with this crisis that you're facing, and then when you're back, I know you'll deal with it again. But every night I'd do 2.5 hours to the clinic, to the hospital, and then 2.5 hours back every night, just to go and see her.
Wow.
around the same time, her mum had been sectioned and in the Parklands here in Basingstoke, and essentially she couldn't deal with the kids, the other kids. So we have the three kids together. She relinquished her parental responsibilities to me, so I took on full-time care of our son and our other daughter. So we were trying to deal with, me and my current wife were trying to deal with this whole mishmash of escalating problems that were going on. My wife now dealing with a new family that would come to live with us. We were living in a house that was probably too small for all of us, and my other daughter being in this mental health hospital, a high dependency unit, and seeing her there, like I said, people, even in a high dependency mental health unit, people still manage to self-harm in those places. They'll scratch at themselves to the point where they're making, just to get a release. And I just couldn't believe the process that she was going through there. And I maybe not kind of verbalizing it as much. It's just so much to unpick. And like I said, it's this whole mash of everything going on all at the same time. And I guess I don't know where to start. But the one thing that I had was always to be able to come home to my wife now and talk. She would always want to talk about it and how I was feeling and whether I was okay. And I had some good friends nearby as well that were there for me, which helped. I could never stress, and I think in the email that I sent to you, I said that I could never stress the importance of talking enough to people. It's that starting point. It really is, that's helped me.
It's what it's all about, mate. You've had a lot of things going on in that journey, and just to make sure we're clear for anybody that's listening in terms of your daughter and where she's at now.
So now she got released after 6 months stay. She was I'd say quite highly medicated when she came out, of a variety of different drugs. But so that was kind of nearly 2 years ago now, maybe 18 months. And we've been through a cycle on her release. Times where we thought that she was regressing, and because what they normally wanted to see was her go from a high dependency unit to a lower dependency unit where she's essentially on day release, but they didn't have the space for that. So it was kind of like, there you go, you're out back in the wild kind of thing, deal with it yourself. And she was having regular cams. She's now 18. The lockdown, I think, from last year affected her really badly. I say really badly, like badly in her sense, because she was unable to go out and get a job. She essentially went to college and was on a kind of a pathways because of her education had suffered because of her mental health, and she had no qualifications, no GCSEs. And then with the lockdown, it was kind of like, well, college is finished, now you need to go out and find your own way. We did have times where we thought she'd go back in. There were conversations that she had with her therapist at CAMS, where he obviously had to express to me that there was some issues. So, at the moment, I only give her access to 7 days worth of medication because of that. There is still a threat that she may decide to overdose on it. So if I give her just enough to get by, she wants to be an adult, but she also doesn't kind of handle the adult situations very well. And so that's kind of my way of saying, I trust you enough to be an adult. Here's 7 days. Now show me your trust. Show me some trust in not with taking each medication 1 day at a time, kind of thing. But things are back on track, and she actually recently, through a family friend, managed to get a job in a field that she wanted to get into from before leaving college, and she's happy, and she's high, but it's not the high that she used to face with her mental health. She used to have like these highs and lows, but it's I'm in a good place high, which good is stuff. which has really made my day. You know, it's
Yeah.
from seeing her at the point where she was, you know, trying to take her own life to where she is now. I guess that for anybody else out there that, you know, there can be happy endings, and I, you know, I'm very fortunate that mine has been a happy ending.
Yeah.
Or at
Yeah,
least
it's
a happy path.
continuation. Yeah.
Right. It's a
Yeah. Yeah.
continuation. Yeah.
It's not
We
finished.
still haven't got there. It's not finished.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh gosh, there's going to be
Yeah.
more in there, but there's
Yeah.
what I love, Alex, is the openness that you share that, and you know, you and I share similar paths with our journeys, with our children, and with our experiences, and you know, there's two people here sat on this chat who can both say, you know, we've been through these challenges with our children, and and things are okay at the moment, you know, good, you know, they're better than okay, they're good at the moment, and but we keep an eye, we watch it, don't we? And you know, we're well into extra time on this. But you know what, it's been so fascinating. I've loved listening to your stories, Alex, and you know, as like all of these conversations that I'm very privileged to sit and listen to, it's just another incredible journey that somebody's shared with everybody. Final thoughts, anything you want to share? I sort of probably know what you might say.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, just talk to people, right?
Yeah.
And try to. It's easy for me to say. I can recognize when people aren't feeling 100% because I've been through those experiences. But just, you know, whether you're at work, whether you're at home, just open up and try to talk to. It's hard. It really is hard at first. But I just encourage people to talk, because it's the starting point, you know. And there may be tears, there may be you know, anxiety, there may be stresses, but you know, you can only start by opening up and making that conversation. And I try to be aware with it where I work and the people that I line manage. You know, I just want people to talk about things that go on.
Yeah.
Because you can't help otherwise.
Well, how would you know? You know, if somebody's suffering and they don't say, it's hard to know, isn't it? That's why I sort of encourage people to do all the time. And listen, Alex, I just want to say a huge thank you to you. Send all the very best to you and your family and your children and everything else that you're doing. Good luck with those super long runs. They scare the hell out of me just thinking about them. Enjoy your 25-mile, you know, gentle jog tonight or whatever it might be. But yeah, so just a huge thank you. As I always say at the end, if anybody is struggling with any of the content, if you are worried about anything, you know, that Alex has talked about, and we've talked about some very deep subjects, you know, your story does cover some deep thoughts. No, there are always people available. You know, talking is the key to all of this. If we talk about mental health and we are open and honest about how we're really feeling, it can really help us to improve those challenges. You know, I'm not going to say it fixes everything, but we can improve the situation. Samaritans exist today exactly for that reason. You know, I've always said this in every conversation. 116-123 is the number. If you need to talk to somebody in a safe, confidential space where they're not going to tell everybody your stories themselves, we're just going to listen, please do get in touch. And thank you so much, Alex, for participating in this. I've really enjoyed listening to your story.
Thanks for having me on, and apologies for rambling on for so long.
Oh, not at all, not at all. I'm loving extra time when it's, you know, a really great conversation as well. Cool. So thank you so much. Thank you. I'll catch you soon.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.